sure you've all been here where I've been. In fact, I know most of you have. I was very overwhelmed when I first started thinking about my icebreaker topic. I mean, it should be easy enough. It's about me, right? But there's so many facets about me. How do you pick one? So I did a brainstorming technique that I learned at a workshop one time. I'm going to share it with you. It involves a pile of sticky notes, a marker, pen, and just a clock. And I'm going to use the wall here. What you do is you write down ideas. You don't censor yourself. You get raw ideas. And then at the end of time, you put them up on the wall and you take a look at it. And it really gives you a good picture, uncensored, unfiltered, of how you can move forward. So I tried. I'm going to share with you what I've got. I am wife to Mike. Oops, mom to Natalie. I am stepmom to Christian and Annalise. I am a blood donor, O negative. I'm all working on my 9 gallons. I've been in the construction industry for 15 plus years. I am a Taurus. I love to cook. That's my favorite thing to do, is to feed my family. I was born in the great state of Maine, which means I am a diehard New England Patriots fan.
Giants.
Yes. So, and down we go. So as I was going through these notes, I also have been listening to Brene Brown on TED Talks. Is anyone familiar with Brene? She has a talk called The Power of Vulnerability. So if you haven't heard, I highly suggest you go watch it. It's amazing. And I'm going to read to you a quote that she had that really touched me. It said, "Vulnerability is the birthplace of connection and the path to the feeling of worthiness. If it doesn't feel vulnerable, the sharing is probably not constructive." So I thought, why am I here? I'm here to be connected to the rest of the people in my club. I'm here to find my worthiness also by building myself up. I took a look at my items and I said, there's really nothing vulnerable there. So if I really wanted to share effectively, I needed to get vulnerable. So I wrote down one more sticky note. And I wrote down rape victim. And then I crossed out the word victim and I put survivor. Because I am a rape survivor. And that's what I'm going to talk to you about tonight.
Good.
So it happened about 4.5 years ago. My boss and I were on a business trip, ironically, to Orlando. And later that evening, after the events, he raped me in my hotel room. I went home and I hid my secret from my family, my friends, my coworkers, even my husband. I was so confused because I knew this man. I trusted this man. He was my friend. He was my husband's friend. So it didn't make sense to me how this had happened. Something must have been a mistake. I was ashamed. Society puts a lot of shame out there. And I was angry. I was pissed. At the time, my husband's business was going downhill in the economic downturn that was happening. And we were relying on my salary alone. So by reporting to police, I was jeopardizing my job, my salary, my family's livelihood, my personal reputation, my business reputation, and the county I lived in had an unemployment rate of 14.6%, I believe. So I continued to work for the man for 8 months. And that's when I found out that he raped another friend of mine 2 months prior to assaulting me. And at that point I realized it was not a misunderstanding. It was not a mistake. It was a crime. So finally, after 8 months of internalizing this stress and pain and on the cusp of ruining my marriage, I had a major breakdown and I broke down and I told my husband what happened. And after days of crying and talking and crying and talking, he understood it, why I kept it from him. And he agreed that I needed to stay where I was and continue to work for this man while he found employment out of town so we could leave. 4 months later, he was able to find work in Orlando, ironically, and we moved. And I thought that would be it. I thought I was over, sleeping under the rug. I continued to live with the assault on a daily basis. And 2 years later, I found myself lying in a fetal position in the ladies' bathroom at my job, having a 3-hour-long massive panic attack. And that's when I realized it was probably time to get some help. Sweeping it under the rug only creates lumps. I saw a psychiatrist who diagnosed me with major depressive disorder, major anxiety, severe anxiety, and PTSD, which is post-traumatic stress disorder, which is very common for rape victims as well. She put me on medication. I saw a therapist twice a week. I also sought out services at the Victim Service Center of Central Florida. I attended group therapy and specialized workshops there as well. So for a year, my life revolved around healing, and my life revolved around therapy and getting well, and my husband was 100% behind me. Finally, one day, felt different. I felt worthy to be able to tell my story and to be able to go to the police and say, a crime had been committed against me. I didn't have that shame anymore that society had placed upon me. So I found myself at a sheriff's substation. I reported to the police. A couple days later, a detective came to my office and spoke with me. He seemed to think I had a case. It was great. About a week later, he called me back and he said, I'm sorry. He said, the statute of limitations on your case has run out. What it is the statute of limitations in the state of Florida for my particular circumstances for rape is 4 years. I had waited 4 years and 43 days. 43 days. So I was very frustrated by this, to miss the mark by that much. So I did what any analytical person would do. I researched. I threw myself into research for weeks. And I ended up finding out that Florida ranked 48 out of the 50 states within the United States for the length of statute of limitations for rape. Down to the bottom. As I was doing my research, I found a woman by the name of Jenny Wendt, who now is a personal friend of mine in Indiana. She had a similar situation happen, and she was changing the laws in her state. And I thought, why not me? And I made that decision. And out of that decision, the 43 Days Initiative was born. I have a mission to change the statute of limitations within the state of Florida. I have the support of the Victim Service Center of Central Florida, the Florida Council Against Sexual Violence, my personal senator, David Simmons, numbers of sexual assault victims, my family, and I'm able to bring this issue to the forefront and fight for the hundreds of thousands of adults in Florida affected by rape. And it's my privilege to do it. Thank you very much.